Hello, and welcome to the Unleashed podcast, the show for professionals and leaders ready to create aligned careers, lasting hires, and purpose-driven impact. Each episode delivers real stories and proven strategies to inspire professionals in reaching their personal and career goals. My name is Amy Miller, and joining us on the show today is seasoned sales leader and singer-songwriter Jake Gustafson. Welcome, Jake.
Yes, thank you, Amy. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Of course, we know each other professionally from our LinkedIn network. And as I mentioned to you many times before, I've been very impressed with your professional sales career and also your mindset and your outlook. But or positive outlook, I should say, but I only just recently learned about your creative endeavors and that you have your own record label where you produce your music and you sing and record your own songs and even perform. So this is really exciting. Congrats on all of that. You're successful in business and in creative. Do you feel successful?
I think I would say yes. There's so many different ways to take that question, but overall, I think on a daily basis, I think I would say I would consider myself successful. I don't know that it's what I would have envisioned, even 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago, but I wake up today and I do feel successful. Yeah.
That's good to hear. And I know what you mean about different ways to take and maybe answer that question, because even as we are actively pursuing and achieving the step-by-step milestone successes, there's always more to go and there's always further down the line that we want to be. But what I love about your story, just getting started here, is that you are doing it, because a lot of times I meet with and speak with professionals who are seasoned in their career and maybe they are even highly regarded, but there's something else that they want to be doing. And there can be some fear there in taking that step, but you're doing it. So we're going to dive in today and talk about how you balance your creative and your business attention and focus and success. We're going to talk about motivation and self-efficacy or belief in yourself. We're going to talk about what to do when you're feeling stuck and how to get that creative spark if you feel like you've lost it or maybe have never had it. And I know that you have some healthy success habits in place for your body and your mind. So we're going to talk about that too. And let's dive in. Let me first, does that all sound good to you?
That sounds fantastic. I love it.
Okay, great. Well, first I want to share a little bit about your background. I understand you earned your bachelor's in physiology and you did some bartending, you did an internship, and it looks like from the outside looking in that you moved relatively quickly throughout your career. You broke into pharmaceutical sales, and then now you're in a strategic accounts role in the lab diagnostic space. So you've had a lot of success, I think, if it's okay for me to say, at a young age in your medical sales career. And then you're also an athlete. You play lacrosse and ice hockey, All-American. So I think you've got a lot of success habits that we can pull from.
Well, I really appreciate that, especially the young comment. I think that's
is that okay?
No, that's great. That's great. I love that. I think that's especially as someone who I actually lost my hair pretty early in my mid-20s, and so
oh wow,
there was always a little bit of I don't know. You just kind of feel a little bit self-conscious about that. So yeah, I'll take the young comment any day of the week.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, because we never know how others see themselves and maybe how others see us, but that's not something that ever stood out to me. I think you wear it well. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're rocking it well. One thing that you shared with me on what you attribute your success to, you mentioned your upbringing and that your parents instilled confidence in you to believe in yourself, that you can achieve, whether it is in business or in sports. And so I think that is, of course, that's great that you were, born into a family where you have that support and you have people that are important to you believing in you. And then it's up to you to make decisions moving forward to continue to foster an environment where you feel supported and you continue believing in yourself. I'm curious how important you think who you surround yourself with is in your success.
Yeah, I mean, it's so critical. And even when I think about the individuals I'm closest with today, a lot of them share a similar mindset to me. And so I think that it's critical to, again, kind of put yourself in that environment to understand one, where you want to go, and then again, surround yourself with those people who are like-minded and can help you get there, because again, nobody does it by themselves. So the more that you can surround yourself with that energy and collaboration, I mean, the quicker and more efficient you're going to get to your goals.
I could not agree more. I think it's so important. And I don't think that not everybody is aware of just how impacted we can be with our surroundings. And I think that, we only have control over ourselves, which is actually a lot. But there are times when because we can choose our focus and how much time and attention we give to other people and situations in our environment. But I'm curious, what do you do in those times where you don't have control over your external environment? Maybe you're in a situation that's maybe not optimal with the other energy and people in the room. What do you do in those situations?
Yeah, it happens a lot. I think especially younger in your career. I mean, I think as you grow, you have the option and the ability to kind of choose the rooms that you're a part of. But especially early on in one's career, especially my career, I think that I did find myself in those situations where I was around people who didn't necessarily share my mindset and share kind of the goals and trajectory that I wanted to be on. In terms of strategies for that, I think the best thing that you can do is just prepare, understand what you're going into when you enter that room and that energy, and then do whatever you can to ensure that you're going to be kind of the rock and the foundation in that room and among that energy. So kind of do whatever you can to ensure that you're not almost falling in line with the other energy in the room. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the best advice I could give somebody, because I do know it's tough. And there is that temptation to kind of conform to the energy around you, to be liked, to be accepted. So it's difficult, but I think that preparation is so critical to that.
What do you do to prepare? What's one thing that you do?
Yeah, I think what I would do, I regularly practice meditation. And so I think one thing that I would do going into that is just kind of reset myself and probably meditate for 10 to 15 minutes before going into that environment, to just ensure that I am as grounded as I could be, before being exposed.
Mm-hmm. I love that you meditate. I was debating on whether or not to ask you that during our conversation today, because I was hoping that you would say yes, but then I thought, well, what if he says no?
Yeah, let's dive in. I love it.
I think it's so important. We're going to circle back to that a little bit later. But yeah, something that I've been doing to help, because I can tend to absorb people's feelings. I feel people's feelings, but I have to be careful, because I will take them on and it can be really taxing. So I've been doing this little mantra saying that I'm rooted and grounded in my energy. So same as you, maybe the wording is a little bit different, but that meditation and that grounding, so that you mentally prepare, so then you're less affected. So I think that's great. And that leads into actually what I want to talk about next, which is responsibility. I think that, we all have choices, and it's our choices that create our outcomes. And actually, before we get to the choices, it's our mindset that influences our choices, and then our choices create our outcomes. And with anything new or different, whether it's a challenge that we're looking to overcome or a goal that we're working toward achieving, it's different. So there can be some fear there. But we have a choice then as well. We can choose to lean into the fear, maybe try somewhat, but not fully believing in ourselves, or we can choose to believe in ourselves. And I would love to hear about, because it again appears that you have been successful. And to me, success means doing what you love and doing well at it and making progress. But was there ever a time where you felt some fear around something that you wanted to pursue? And if you're open to sharing the example, you can do that. And then I'd like to hear, what was your choice? What was your process? And what was the outcome?
Yeah. So I think one thing that you said about mindset kind of sparked something in me. This idea of, and I'll circle back to fear in just a moment. There's this idea of our thoughts creating our actions, and our actions creating our behaviors, and our behaviors creating our habits, and our habits creating our destiny. So going back to your point of how critical mindset is, I mean, that's the foundation for everything, everything that exists externally in our world. So, I mean, just to your point, so critical. Going back to fear, all the time, I'm afraid. But I think it doesn't matter. I mean, the world's going to turn regardless. And actually, in thinking about a recent example, I actually thought about this podcast. We were touching on before the show that I'd never done a podcast before. I'm super excited to do it. but it was something I'd never done before. And so there was a little bit of fear. And I thought about how, I just got back from San Francisco yesterday. I'm traveling to Europe next week. I'm like, I'm so busy. That would have been my excuse to not face that fear. So, but also those fears that we give into become our limits. So whether it's switching jobs, whether it's changing relationships, wherever we decide that fear threshold is, that's our limit. So I think when you come across fear, it's almost like I've worked hard to get here. Like thank God for the fear that I have the privilege to experience this. So it's just the perspective around fear is so huge in overcoming it.
So many things that you said there are important and key to circle back and touch on. You said, I'm afraid all the time. And so for somebody, maybe for a viewer that has an idea, a goal that they want to pursue, there's going to be some fear there because it's different. And there can be some comfort in knowing that other people are scared too. I mean, not that we want people to be scared, but it's a natural human tendency. But like you said, it doesn't matter, or you said, does it matter? And what does matter is your perspective, and you can shift your perspective and to like what you said about your choice there around the fear is your limit. You can choose to push past it, and then you're going to have you stretch your limits, and that's how you keep growing. So that's that's really good stuff that you shared there.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that that you'd care to share in terms of fear, or something that you've been afraid of recently?
I had some trepidation. I'm not going to take this easy out here, but I will be honest and share that I also had some trepidation about the podcast, as we were chatting about, because I've been really busy over the last year pursuing my master's degree, and something had to give. I actually take a lot of time to prepare and research and prepare my meaningful questions for the podcast. So it's a time investment, and I could have not done it, but I know that this is important for me to do, and I get so much joy and fulfillment, and it's a challenge for me as well. So I like that challenge. So I had some fear, and I also haven't done a live video in a while, again, because of the master's program, because again, it takes a lot of time to prepare. So there was some fear there, but it feels so good to just challenge myself and to do it. And so what I'll do is, I always remind myself that you're going to improve. Just do it, because a lot of times we have to try to inform ourselves of what the next step is and inform ourselves of how to improve. And when I was younger, my trophy was always most improved, and I hated it so much, but now it's basically part of my business tagline, which is perseverance is part of it, because that means improving. So does that work?
And no, that's great. And I think truly, what is life without growth and without evolution? So
Boring.
Right, exactly. It's so key, I think, to be growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's say, for example, somebody's feeling stuck in their career. We can have times where we feel like challenged, and like we're moving through the challenge and we're making progress, like those mini milestones, step by step, and that feels good. And then we can have times where we just feel stuck, and how we'll know is the emotion behind it, where we just feel frustrated, like we're hitting a wall. And it seems like your career path has been relatively quick, and you have had success. And I'm curious, well, actually, before I circle back to the other question, if you have felt stuck at times, or if your path has mainly felt just more like a positive challenge.
I think everyone has experienced that feeling of being stuck or feeling like you're stuck. I'm trying to think of a recent example. I think I have experienced that mostly on more the artistic side of things, as far as my record label and growing that, kind of in parallel to working my day job. So that's been a point of emphasis for me the last few years, and especially this past year, is what does that next stage look like for that endeavor, and how do I get there? What do I need to learn to become the person worthy of these things that I'm hoping to achieve? There's always, there's always a next stage. And so I think feeling stuck or wanting to be at that next level is pretty frequent.
I can definitely relate to that. I think anytime we have, our professional life, our job that we know is secure in bringing in our income that we need, but then we've got this other outlet that is also really meaningful and important to us. We always want to be further down. We always want to be further along, but I also think that opportunities show up when we're ready, and so it's part of the process. Is there something that you do and or recommend for others when you're feeling stuck?
This is going to sound just so cliche or easy, but I think it's the point is just to keep going and keep moving and keep trying, because you just never know when the levee's going to break, and you never know when that next door you knock on is going to be the one that opens. And so you just have to maintain that belief and kind of maintain that focus of the end goal rather than where I'm at today being stuck. It's why am I doing this, and why am I going to continue doing this until I get there? Because it's something that's meaningful, and it's something that you feel compelled to achieve for whatever reason, by whatever source is, granting that to you. I think that's what I would do. And I think there's different ways to go about that depending on what your goals are, whether that's in business, whether that's in fitness. So I'm happy to talk about those kind of more micro behaviors or mindsets that we can go into. But I think it's just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Perseverance, keep going. That's going to challenge you and help you continue to grow. And you said it comes back to your why, which I think if I can tie in the meditation, which again, we're going to get a little bit deeper into later if we have time, but part of being able to follow your why is to first trust it. And so you need to it's important to be present and be aware so that you can really hear and then listen to and then go in the direction of what is meaningful to you. As long as you have a strong why and your why makes sense, meaning it aligns with what's important to you. So why, like sometimes people really want to get promoted, for example, and it just keeps not working out. And then or they really want to pursue a specific career path, but the why is not really matching up with the what, then they might be going in the wrong direction. But as long as you're solid in your why, then you're pointed in the right direction. And then if you keep trying, your next step is going to come.
Yeah, that's such a good point that you make, because I think that I relate that back to my music career. I started writing music in my early 20s. And for the first, I think, 7 years of writing music, I never had a song that had ever even hit 1,000 plays on any platform. So I'm writing and recording and releasing music for year after year after year and just never seeing any sort of traction. And you get to a point where you're like, well, what am I doing this for anymore? If there's no interest in what I'm doing, I feel discouraged. Like, what's the end goal? And so I almost had to get to a place of, well, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if I was traveling the world on a world tour or whether I was writing a song that 12 people were going to hear. It's just what I felt in my heart of hearts that was the work that I needed to be doing. And so once I kind of threw away all of those extraneous results, that's when I actually started seeing momentum, was when I didn't care if I had the listeners. I didn't care if I was on tour. I just did it because I'm a songwriter. Whether I want to be or not, that's the gift that's on me and what I'm compelled to do. So if I focus on that, then the results will come.
For tuning in, I help professionals and organizations make intentional, confident career moves, from building lasting teams to creating aligned careers. With over a decade of recruiting results and a background in organizational psychology, I combine proven hiring practices with strategies for overcoming fear, trusting your intuition to help in creating lasting success. You can learn more about my workshops, coaching, and consulting in the links below. And now back to our conversation.
Where we feel drawn to this direction, this thing. And I feel like that's our purpose. And I also feel like, tying back into responsibility, that it's our responsibility to go in that direction, because we're being pulled in that direction, guided, because we have something to offer. We have something to give there, something that's going to impact others, somebody else out there. And so it's our responsibility to follow that and trust in ourselves, believe in ourselves, and keep going. And you're doing that.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about you and your why, or if that's changed recently.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Ever since I was little, so I didn't have the best life growing up. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Like I was different from my family members. And so I was kind of ostracized a little bit. And that was really challenging in my formative years. it resulted in me shaping some untrue beliefs about myself, and I didn't feel good. I didn't feel happy, and I don't think that often people would know from the outside looking in. As I mentioned, I think I mentioned that I started developing these success habits like running and writing. I had to find things to make myself feel good, and something that I think that I was born with just inherently is a belief in myself. And I think that how we see ourselves is how we see others. And so for this reason, I have a very strong belief in everybody else that they can achieve whatever they set their mind to. And I'm super passionate about helping others see this within themselves. So I was always kind of like this mini motivator, from the time I was a little kid, always believing in and encouraging others. And our good qualities can sometimes hold us back, like the double-edged sword kind of thing. So I used to apply it in areas that were not very useful for me. But now that's a big part of the reason, why I do what I do. That, along with the challenges that I overcame in my younger years, well, now I know how to do it. I know how to combine healthy mindset habits and success habits with drive and action steps in your career to create the life that you love. And because I can, well, I must. So I'm going to get emotional.
All right. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. It's so potent in terms of becoming, I think. And one thing that reminded me of how you mentioned you believe that anyone can become whatever they set their mind to. And because you believe that in yourself. And I think one thing that I go back to is that the world that we see outside reflects who and what we are on the inside. And so the more that, if we see a beautiful world around us, is a lot of times because we've done the inner work on ourselves to get there, to see it that way. So, I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks for asking about it so that I could share. And I couldn't agree with you more on what you just mentioned about our internal world reflecting back at us. I mean, with all of the work that I've done, inner work that is, I now feel genuinely fantastic mostly all day of every day. Now, maybe I have a dip, but once you elevate your mindset, you're elevated. That's your natural state. But on those days where I'm having a little dip, I'm very aware, and I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to be social. And I try to keep my energy to myself because I know I'm going to go out there and reflect that back. Or if I'm feeling a little, yucky or something grumpy, I'll just really try to be extra nice to the people that I encounter because I know that I'm going to get that energy back.
That's a great strategy.
Helpful.
That's a great strategy. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about, let's shift gears and talk about your, I call them your drivers. So you said that two things that you thrive on are challenge and growth. And I think I call these drivers because these are emotions. So drivers to me are emotions or actions, or they could be environments that stimulate you where you feel like your authentic self. And so then you're naturally going to feel motivated. So you mentioned for you, challenge and growth. Where do you think, I'm curious, these drivers came from for you? And what are some things that you do to actively stimulate them each day, each week, so that you feel like you're challenged and you feel like you're growing?
I'm not sure where it came from. I've always been a very competitive individual. About as young as I can remember, I've always gravitated towards sports. And what was interesting is I've been in situations like on teams where you are great and won championships, and I've been on teams that lost nearly every game. But to me, it kind of didn't matter. I just loved to compete. That was my favorite part of it. So where it came from, I'm not too sure. I think it's just one of those things that's part of who I am. And so in a way, I almost feel like I don't have to make it an intention to put myself in an environment where I feel driven or I feel like I need to grow, because I feel that way whether I'm I just lost a hockey game or whether I'm traveling in Paris. I always feel like I want to become something more, something greater. And I do think, touching back on something earlier you mentioned, I do think that was instilled in me at a young age, where my parents made me believe that I could become, whoever and whatever I wanted to be in this world and in this life. And I think that's been so critical to hold on to my entire life, to even be here at 33. I do feel like I've accomplished a lot, and certainly much more to go. But just thankful for everything that's made me who I am.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to me, anyway, it sounds like maybe you don't have to put as much focus and intention on or attention to making sure that you're engaging in activities where you feel like you're challenged and you feel like you're growing, stimulating your drivers because it's a habit now, like where you don't even have to think twice about it.
Yeah, yeah, and always going back to our fear conversation, it's almost like if there's something if there's something that sort of brings about this fear feeling, that's almost an indicator of like, okay, that's where you need to go.
Yes.
So I like to use fear as almost almost like a North Star in a way to what's going to challenge me most, what's going to help me grow.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Hopefully our viewers will take that as a takeaway. I think that uh, once you, yeah, going in the direction that scares you is key often because, you know, fear is there either to protect you if you are in physical danger. But if you're not in physical danger and you choose to lead with the fear and let that guide your direction, it's always going to take you further from where you want to go. And when you do what scares you, then you're no longer scared. And like you talked about limits before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. What is your dominant mindset or thought that you try to lead with each day? I don't know if that's something that you think about, but
Always,
there one?
always. It's thank God, it's gratitude. You know, even for example, yesterday in the airport in San Francisco, I tweaked my back to a point where I was about to get on the plane and I'm like, I might need a wheelchair.
Oh my goodness.
It was that
Okay.
painful. But I'm sitting there on the plane, hunched over, because it was the only position that felt comfortable. And I just thought to myself how grateful I was that had happened that day and not a week from now when I'm on a 10-hour flight to Europe. So I think for me, it's just truly, if there's ever an axiom that I've come to develop to believe that I know in my heart of hearts to be true in this universe, it's gratitude in all circumstances. So that's my overriding belief and thought. And if I'm having a bad day or a bad time, being grateful for a cup of coffee or clean air, just honestly anything, because there's so much at any given time. There are a million things that we can be thankful for. So it's just staying grounded in gratitude.
Absolutely. And that can just you can shift your perspective just like that. That is a really great example that you shared about your back. You know, you could have focused on that and had a worse flight. You know, what we focus on tends to get bigger. You know, if we think back to and maybe an argument that we were having even years ago, the more we think about it, we start to get angry or how we start to stir up that emotion that we felt way back then. And it's not even happening anymore. So yeah, just by shifting your perspective, you can change your day, and ultimately you can change your life. Sorry, I tend to talk like a motivational speaker just naturally.
I love it. I love it. I feel like we're on the same kind of wavelength in terms of mindset. I'm curious,
Nice.
do you have kind of an overriding or dominant thought as you go throughout the day?
I knew that you were going to bring that back to me, and I didn't actually prepare for it. Let me think here. I think my belief in myself. I just, I know I will achieve whatever I set my mind to. I've also learned that it's key to make sure that you're going in the right direction. You know, there have been times where I'm pursuing a goal because I don't like to give up just because I said, well, I was going to do this. And then 5 years later, I look back and I pause and I ask myself, well, how are you really feeling? Maybe that's one. I'll come back to that. In this situation, is this really what you want to be focusing your energy on? Because if not, sometimes it does make sense to give up when you're going in the wrong direction. So one dominant belief and thought mindset that I carry is that I can achieve whatever I set my mind to. And now I'm very clear on what I want, but I also know and what I'm working toward and what I'm actively doing now. But I also know that there's going to be more that I have yet to even imagine. I'm pretty much, my creative mind is almost always going. One of my friends that I go for walks with in the neighborhood jokes and says that I have a new business idea every block, and he's right. It's always, going. So that's one I believe that I can, my belief in my ability to achieve. What was the other one I just had? I don't remember, but if I think of it, I'll come back.
Yeah, well, kudos to developing, I think, the self-awareness, because I think sometimes too we get stuck in, oh, I've wanted this for so long, that we become rigid and unable to kind of bend with the opportunities that are in front of us.
Yes.
So I think that you've done a really nice job of understanding what your goals are, but also maintaining the flexibility, one, of the goals, and two, how to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that that's critical to ending up where we need to be. So yeah, just kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I will share one thing that I do that has been really instrumental, I think, in helping me to feel successful along my path, even when maybe I feel a little bit stuck, or maybe I just want, because there's a few different aspects to my business areas that I focus on. And maybe I'm pushing kind of hard in one area, but nothing's happening with it. Well, I'll stop and I'll recognize, and this is actually the other dominant mindset. I remembered it. It's, how am I feeling? I'm always paying attention to how I'm actually feeling, because this is your intuition, and that's where you're going to get your ideas from. That's where you're going to solve your problems. But a lot of times, and that's within us, so we want to look within us rather than looking outside of ourselves. But a lot of times we're not listening to that, and we shut it down, and then we can go in the wrong direction or keep going in the wrong direction. So I'll check in with myself. How am I feeling? And so in that example, where one aspect of my business I was pushing for, I paused and I recognized, you're pushing, and we can't receive opportunities and next steps when we're pushing. But then I realized, well, hey, I'm getting a lot of attention in this other area of my business. So this is where I'm going to flow my energy and attention. So I just kind of flow it that way. This is what's busy now, focus in this area. And then we can feel like we're successfully moving through the challenges rather than stuck.
Yeah, I'm curious, in that area of your business where you felt stuck or like you weren't making progress, was that an area that you had to then outsource to a different party, or was that then just like more of a shift in your overall business model to something that felt a little bit more fulfilling and a little bit more fluid?
No outsourcing. I do still expand or plan to expand and further grow it. I think that, again, I'll say opportunities show up when we're ready. So maybe there's more that I need to equip myself with, and before I'm ready for that opportunity. And the opportunities to equip myself to prepare to gain some experience showed up in another area of my business, and I recognize that. So
excellent.
Yeah. Let's talk about creativity. I was working with a client a while back, and love this client. I'm so proud of him. He's doing great. But he didn't feel like he had, like he was creative. And we talked about this, and he was feeling like he didn't really have that creative spark. Like, what is creativity, and how do you get it? And I think that our creativity comes to us through our ideas. So you can be creative, even if you are, a CPA or doing something super technical for your job. Where do you feel like, so you said you started writing songs in your early 20s. I'm curious if maybe even before that, or when did you feel that creative spark? And any advice for somebody who feels like they've lost that creative spark, or feels like they've never had it?
Yeah, I think that I'm so glad you brought this up, because I think that that's something I've noticed, especially being someone who still is publicly creative. I've noticed my friends bring that up to me and say, oh, I'm not a musician, I'm not a painter, I'm not creative. And I think that there's a difference between creativity and artistry. And so I think that creativity, what we have to look at is creation. So whether you are creating a song or whether you are creating documents in Excel, that's a form of creativity. You're creating something. Mm-hmm. So I think that is going to look different for everyone. So, and a lot of times I think we kind of romanticize like the artist, the one who's gonna kill themselves to put themselves on stage and write the songs and all that. And, that's one very particular area of creativity and artistry. And so I think the main focal point is, what is my area of creativity? What am I in, to kind of put your foundation in something? It's, what do I create every day? What do I want to create? What do I feel good creating? Whether that's for myself, for the world, for the company, to root in that, and then find your creativity in there.
That is excellent advice. I'm so glad I asked this question too, because just to get a different perspective. And that's also great to hear that you get that as well from because I'm creative. I'm a writer. I create content. I used to write, poetry and short stories when I was little. So I've always been a creator too, but you're absolutely right. You can create, being creative is just creating. And I think in adopting that perspective, you can feel empowered. You can feel like you have a sense of, ownership over what you're doing, and like what you're doing matters, maybe even more if you think about it in terms of you are creating. So
Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think that they're not creating because they're not doing the thing that they're looking towards their, favorite singer or whatever. They're just creating differently. So whether, I go for a walk and I take a photo of, I don't know, a building I like, that's creation. You're creating. And so I think it's just, how do we like to create? That's your creativity.
Yeah, again, shifting your perspective. That's
Yep.
beautiful. Well, we already know that you are a superhero because of I'm obsessed with superheroes, and I'll tell you why. But so this is why this is on my mind when I'm thinking about you and what you're doing, because you're a top performer in your business role in medical sales. You have been promoted into a strategic accounts role. So you've had success. You're doing well there. And you've also performed live and are actively creating your own music. And I watched some of your videos and they're so fun. So you're balancing kind of like Superman, who's Clark Kent at the office. Let me know if you think of another one. And then, his alter ego, your alter ego, Jake Gusto, as you shared. So you're doing a lot of things right. And I think that beyond right. So as you've been sharing, kudos to me, kudos to you. And, part of our success is also awareness. And that is being aware of what we want so that we can prioritize what's meaningful to us, being aware of what we're good at, but also being aware of what maybe we're not great at. So we can maybe outsource that, like you mentioned, or understanding what we want to work on, those areas of development. What is one area that you are working to improve?
Waking up at the same time every day.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so I tend to find that my schedule can sometimes dictate that, and I would like to just be a little bit more stringent in my routine. So,
Okay.
So waking up, at a particular time every day, I think that's just healthy for, of course, the circadian rhythms in the body to get into a flow state and routine. So that's one thing that's top of mind lately. Otherwise, I'm always looking at how to refine my diet. So recently I decided to go gluten-free and a lot of other things, in terms of sugar and processed foods, but always refining my diet. I was actually somebody who my entire life I had asthma. And then after switching my diet, I no longer have asthma. So I'm like a huge proponent of like what diet can do for your life.
Yes.
So that's something I'm always trying to tweak and refine. And so most recently in that regard, I'm actually looking into traditional Chinese medicine a little bit, where the body can have either an overly cold or an overly hot constitution. So I'm thinking that I have an overly cold constitution known as Han Di. And so I'm including a diet that's a little bit more focused on building warmth within the body to balance out my qi. So that's been kind of another area of focus the last few months.
I love that. We do have so much in common. I've been focused on Eastern medicine for a long time now. There's absolutely a need, of course, for Western medicine, and I appreciate my Western medicine doctors, but I've had a lot of body challenges like chronic inflammation over the years for, I'm talking decades, and I keep finding ways to refine my diet where I feel tremendously better, and even something just recently, and I don't know that I'll get into it just because we can, and I appreciate you sharing yours. Just sometimes we can say, okay, well, they tried this, let me try this, and I think it's so important to pay attention to your specific body, and we react to foods differently, and I'm a big believer in healing through nutrition. So I love that you shared that, and that's something else that I wanted to touch on was how you nourish your body and nourish and condition your body and your mind. And so you mentioned a couple things, and I know that you're into sports, and you mentioned meditation. Anything else that you wanted to share as far as success habits to help others better take care of their body, and why is that important, do you think, in working towards your goals?
Yeah, oh my goodness, so many things, so many different ways my mind goes with in terms of how do we optimize our body, how do we optimize our mind, specifically in the physical realm. Something I try to do every day is move in some capacity, whether that's go to the gym, go for a run, do yoga, play hockey. that's something that I know that I need, that my body responds best to. And I know that my mind will then also reflect those benefits. So that's something that I incorporate daily at a minimum in any capacity. And I think switching things up is always a good thing, at least I found. So yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm trying to think of maybe something that I'm working on. Less sugar, I think. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
So working on almost kind of cutting that out completely, including, when I get like a coffee, rather than go for a latte or something, with any sort of sugar or dairy, just go for something black or whatever. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's just something top of mind.
I'll send you a recipe. I recently went off sugar. That was one of the things that was causing inflammation for me. So I cut it and I don't miss it at all. But I was chat GPTing to find recipes when I'm craving this. What can I have? And I've got this great recipe for a smoothie. Well, I'll just tell everybody in case anybody wants to try it. So frozen blueberries, frozen banana slices, zucchini. I put a little bit of carob powder, but you can use cocoa, and a little bit of water and honey, and you blend it and it tastes like a healthy ice cream or smoothie. And yeah, when I want something sweet, bananas or that, and it's great.
Yeah, all whole foods, natural sugars, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of fruit. Before we let you go, it's been so great having you here. I want to hear just a little bit about your music, the genre that you would describe your music as, and what you want listeners to feel when they listen to your music, if there's something that some way that you want to inspire them. And also, if we're not familiar with your music, if there's a specific song that you recommend, or maybe have a favorite song.
Oh, wow. Good questions. As far as genre goes, it kind of is all over the board. It's whatever I'm feeling like writing in that day. So it can be hip hop, pop, acoustic, even with some electronic influence. So I mean, next week I actually have a song coming out that's a little bit more rock, almost like into the metal area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
different. Okay.
Yeah, so different. So I'm always trying to kind of expand and play with new things as far as genre goes. So maybe that is the genre, not kind of sticking to a genre.
Nice.
In terms of favorite song, I think my song "Closure" was probably the most popular, or the one that was most most played throughout the different platforms. So that's always a fun one to go back to. In terms of like my favorite song, I don't know. I really like my new song "Sandra" that just came out last week. And I think I'm fortunate to be at a point where I like the music that I'm creating now. Back in the day, I didn't, like my own music really even, but nowadays.
Oh, wow.
Any song released in the past few years, I'm like, heck yeah, I'll jam to it.
Nice.
So
that's interesting.
So that was big for me. And I can go down a 20-minute rabbit hole on that, but yeah, I think I probably missed a question or two in there. If there's anything else that I could add to that answer.
Just if there, and maybe your music is just, it inspires you, but is there, which that's great. Maybe you're creating what inspires you. But I'm curious if there's anything that you want listeners to come away with. Is there anything that you want them to feel?
That you can do anything. Whether you work at Chipotle, whether you work in sales for Labcorp, whatever that dream is that you have, you can do it. And it's going to look different for you and it has to look different for you than it will be for someone else. So it's maintaining faith when you're like, oh, I want to do what that person's doing. It's never going to look identical. So you have to utilize everything that you have in reaching and achieving and striving towards what fulfills you and, your quote unquote dream or your dream life. So that's what I would want people to take away is like, hey, here's this guy who works in medical sales, day job, traveling all the time, and still finds time to like do something he loves, be creative, and distribute music. That's, I think, the takeaway I would want to leave with people.
That is an absolutely beautiful takeaway, and I'm so glad that I circled back to ask that question about what takeaway, what you want your listeners to come away feeling inspired from, because that's, I think, the biggest takeaway from our conversation. So much great content here for people information for people to take and hold on to and implement, hopefully moving forward. But I think just to see that, hey, you're doing it. You've got a day job that you're successful at, a high level one at that, but you're also making time for your why, what pulls you, what drives you. And so just seeing that you can do it is going to elevate, and that you are doing it is going to naturally elevate others' self-efficacy, their belief in their ability to achieve.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, I'm sorry, I think I don't know if we're over time or not, but
Go ahead.
I just think back to, you know, like where I came from. And I think back to me working, like washing dishes in the back of the VFW at 14 while my mom was selling pull tabs in the front. Like, in a way, I almost feel like this wasn't supposed to be my life, but it was just because I believed that it could be. You know, I come from a low to middle class family where I had to work to pay for my sports equipment, you know, when I was a teenager. So it wasn't like, you know, any of this was handed to me. So I think that's another thing too. It's like someone might look at, you know, where I'm at and say, oh, well, you know, maybe his dad's a CEO or whatever, but, you know, my dad still works a blue collar job. And so I truly believe that wherever you are, wherever you came from, whatever it is that you want to do, you can get there.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you shared that, because I think that a lot of times from the outside looking in, we can attribute other success to someone's success to something outside of themselves. You know, we can maybe think that success was handed to us. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going to, of course, leave links in the description so that folks can connect with you. I'll leave your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and your Spotify so that we can follow your music. Thank you so much, Jake, for coming on the show and for everything that you shared. Really great to have you.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much to our viewers. Really appreciate you as well. If you got some value, go ahead and hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. And remember, your next step doesn't have to be a big step. It just has to be yours. So keep moving in a direction that feels meaningful and in alignment with you and your values. And until next time, stay curious.
Do the things I would do. I'll get all this. You and me and us made a snap decision. Now I'm running.